Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Chill. Got another video for you today. And this is going to be a very important video. It's going to be a numbers video, but I thought I'd kind of preface the introduction first and then get into the numbers. We have a brand new DPS meta on our hands. We had a recent hotfix that went on live. I'll put up the hotfix here so you can see. But what that has done is, you guys have known for a number of years now, Neo-Venom Boost has always made its way to might rotations, especially on single targets. A lot of might powers have really weak single target supercharges, so Neo-Venom Boost being clippable and everything else with it just being a flat damage boost worked out to be better. You still have power sets like obviously like Electric would use Circuit Breaker, Rage would use Berserk, stuff like that. But there was, the vast majority of my power sets always use Neo-Venom Boost. However, with the change of Word of Power, it now makes Neo-Venom Boost, in my opinion, completely obsolete. I cannot think of a situation, maybe for precision DPS, that still requires some testing. I'll get into that later, but there's a lot of variables just on sparring targets for that, so that could change. But at least for might DPS, I do not see a situation at all where a Neo-Venom Boost would be used over Word of Power. So Word of Power changed recently when the Heart of Isis artifact was released. So this is not applicable for support roles, because as you can see, if I used Word of Power in a controller stance, it'd be increased incoming power, healer would be healing, tank would be increased health. This is only applicable for DPS, where it says critical, increased critical damage and critical crit chance. So with your crits, there's two types. Critical ability means anything you used in your power trades, it basically might abilities. And critical weapon is your weapon damage or precision damage. So think of it like white damage and yellow damage. So if I use Word of Power and then go into my current effects, ignore the 0.8 because on test server the update didn't apply. I'm testing on both. I actually had to waste 2 power spec tokens just to do this on live server. So it's kind of semi-annoying as well. But either way, so we get 10% critical ability attack and it'll be 8% critical ability attack chance for the 10.25 seconds. So let's get into the numbers here. But especially if you're might DPS, definitely watch this video. It's going to be definitely affect and change how you DPS going forward. So let's get into the numbers. Okay, so it's going to be a lot of numbers here, but I'm going to try to explain it in a way that makes perfect sense. But if you need any follow-up questions, definitely put that in the comment section. But I used a electric rotation here, standard AoE mid-range rotation. Obviously, you'd use Circuit Breaker. I'm just using this because I wanted a balance of burst and dot damage. I'm using a standard might setup, which is Transformation Solar and Strategist card. So I needed to establish a baseline damage of this rotation first. So we got 10 30-second parsers on the 5 targets in the House of Legends, which gave me a base damage of this rotation of about 6.6 mil and an average crit of 45.5. And then as well, I needed to establish a baseline damage for Word of Power, because Word of Power actually does damage. So on the 5 targets, we've DPS'd here. It's about anywhere from 3 to 500k damage. The max hits when it crits is about 140k at the 184,000 might. And then on single target, you're looking at around anywhere from like 340 to 350k at this proc, and that's no supply drops, anything. That's just base damage. So think of these numbers being increased greatly when you're actually in content, because you'd have the augment buffs, you'd have control or tetra procs, you'd have claw buffs, you'd have all your consumables and sodas and everything else supply drops. So this base damage for Word of Power drastically increases from that point of view as well. So to go over Neo-Venom, same thing, use the same rotation, 10 30-second parsers, which we got a Neo-Venom. I only used it once, so once per 30-second rotation I used Neo-Venom Boost. And that came out to about 7.6 mil, average critical of 44.3. So I got roughly about 1 million increase over the baseline, or about 14.6 or 15% if you want to round it up. So I got 15% overall increase in damage by using Neo-Venom Boost from the baseline to Neo-Venom. And same thing, if you weren't aware, Neo-Venom is 45 seconds, 5,000 supercharge cost. It gives you 40% flat damage boost for 15 seconds. And then you get the 90% defense as well. So to Word of Power, same thing. This is work on live server. It's 8%. So you saw my example in the beginning in the intro. It's 0.8. It's been changed to 8 on live. The other thing as well, since it's a group effect, this affects the entire group. So if you use Word of Power, everyone in the group gets the 10% critical ability, 8% critical ability attack chance. And you'll see this lightning effect on you as a character if someone else uses it in the group. That's where it says restores power over time. The description hasn't changed, but it's an 8-man effect. So Word of Power damage, same thing, 10 30-second parsers. Came out to about 7 mil. My average criticals was 50%, which is up over 45 and 44. So obviously it's going to be less damage because Word of Power, it's not going to be that 40% damage increase, even with the damage it does itself. So I'm still technically on paper, I lose 7.84% or about 8% damage less if I use just one Word of Power. That's the thing. This is one Word of Power. And Word of Power is a 12-second cooldown, and Neo-Venom is 45 seconds. So I can use almost 4 Word of Powers in the same time you'd use one Neo-Venom Boost. And you saw the baseline damage for Word of Power. So this is just using one. If I'm using one Word of Power, I get about 500k. Now you got to times that by 4, or that's a huge EOG. That's still a huge EOG regen group because the Word of Power is going to be 5k supercharge. So it still takes, you still need the heavy supercharge regen from like healers or tanks. I mean, 4 would be stretching it, but I'm sure you could easily pull off 2 or 3 Word of Powers in that same duration as of Word of Power, Neo-Venom, sorry. So that's damage times 3. Or on single target. So you're almost, if it's on single target, you use it 3 times. That's almost 1 million single target damage baseline. And all those EOG procs and everything else. So that's the way you have to look at it. So taking a look at the summary here. So the duration, where Neo-Venom Boost lasts 15 seconds, Word of Power lasts 10. But the base damage, Neo-Venom has no base damage. All this is just a flat damage increase. So you have to do it with your rotation. So say you have to block or anything else, or you miss them, or you have to roll, mechanics, anything like that. You lose out the damage because Neo-Venom Boost does nothing for you unless you do the damage. Same thing with like an EOG proc. When you proc a Neo-Venom Boost for EOG, you have to do the damage to be able to contribute to that, where Word of Power gets that nice base damage increase. And you get that initial damage as well to contribute to the EOG proc. Cooldown, drastically faster, like I said. 12 seconds versus 45. Group effects, Neo-Venom is just for yourself, where all 7, like the entire raid will get the critical attack ability or not the attacks, or critical ability, attack damage, and critical ability attack chance. Power interaction, you saw here, Word of Power electrifies. Not that really matters in the long run, but it certainly can matter for some power sets because you'd have the free PI set up every 12 seconds. Power cost is the same. The other thing you have to imagine is if you're my DPS and using Quizlet, you'll still proc both on Quizlet. I don't know why I didn't put the red mark there for that. That's a whoopsie. So you still get the same Quizlet proc, but with Pied Piper Flute, depending if you want to add this extra artifact swap in. So Pied Piper procs on supercharged damage and has a chance to deal extra damage depending on the chance of proc you get. It doesn't proc on Neo-Venom Boost because Neo-Venom Boost doesn't do any damage. But it can proc on Word of Power. So depending on how extra you want to art swap, technically now you get an extra damage on top of that with Pied Piper. And a CC effect, Word of Power is a knockback, and it can also stun as well. And Neo-Venom Boost has no such CC effect at all. And then I did do the previous testing as well. This is just kind of like a bonus segment. At the 0.8 damage, it was a 15% damage loss. This is just what it was before. If anyone used Word of Power before the change, you were looking at a 15% damage decrease versus Neo-Venom, but now with the changes, it's 7.8. So that's the way you have to think about it, is that Word of Power now gives you so much higher potential for damage. You get 3 times EOG procs in the same amount of duration you get 1 with Neo-Venom Boost. You can put Word of Power on like stealth and invisibility. You have another thing to help the entire group. So even if this wasn't as beneficial for Prec DPS, because Prec DPS, the reason why I didn't test properly with Prec DPS is because there's too many variables. So if I'm on a sparring target using like a Dervish and Vortex Trap, if I'm melee range, I can hit that with Brawling or Further Shot. But if you're in a raid at ranged, if you're not hitting ads with any actual ability damage, then you're not taking advantage of Word of Power's critical. At that point, Neo-Venom Boost will probably be better because it actually is, Neo-Venom Boost would buff your prec damage as well, because it's base damage. Now, at the same time, 3 EOG procs worth of damage versus 1 Neo-Venom, the 3 EOG procs are still going to win out, but not like every single group is going to be doing like supercharge regen. So it's not the situation where you're always going to get like 3 or multiple Word of Powers out. But even if you get like 1 or 2 off in that same duration, you're helping the entire group and all the other might DPS in the group by giving them the crits. And vice versa. If they're using Word of Power as the same thing, you get those crits as well. So it's just, not only do you have that group synergy, you get not even like like 7.8% is not huge, the damage loss, considering that it's a 45 second versus 12, and you get the base damage of Word of Power. So if you're properly buffed like in a raid with a troll, with your augment buffs, everything else, like you could easily probably get crits of like closer to like 700k to 1,000,000 damage just with 1 Word of Power. Then you go into your EUG proc and have all the critical increases. So this is what I wanted to kind of just get out there. Obviously, it's still going to have to be tested multiple times in content. I know I'm not going to be running Neo-Venom Boost because, I mean, you get a 12-second supercharge to swap in like Scrap. You get to even swap Piper if you wanted to, EOG procs. I mean, there's so much more going for Word of Power right now than Neo-Venom Boost. That's why I'm comfortable saying that this is a completely new meta change, because it's, I know some people that don't run in EOG groups don't really understand. It's hard to describe the amount of damage that you can actually get, and that's how I feel that EOG is so broken and why I always speak against it. But if you're looking at like 12 seconds, every 12 seconds you can get an EOG proc. That lines up completely with like gadgets now. You get the criticals and everything else. So it's just, you don't have to worry about stacking multiple supercharges, or the reason why you'd run like a second supercharge, because you need Venom. If you're in a regen group, you'll get the supercharge back to use Neo-Venom well before the cooldown's finished. So you'll be like 20 seconds into your Neo-Venom Boost, ready to use another supercharge, but then you have to wait the other 25 seconds for cooldown, and you're losing out on damage because there's enough supercharge regen from like 1 or 2 healers, or even in the tank. So switch out, if you're using Neo-Venom Boost, switch to Word of Power, and then you'll see why it's going to be so much more beneficial going forward. So any other questions, comments, concerns, put them in the comment section, and we'll see you in the next video.